Many people often say that marriage is the tomb where life is buried. Yet for the man at the center of our tale, the real grave lies elsewhere. To Tanaka Mikado, a member of the Black Dog Guild, it is employment itself that swallows life whole. For nearly half of his years, he has been confined to a desk, endlessly overseeing the missions of adventurers who come and go. His workload is so relentless that even when midnight passes, he still remains hunched over reports, unable to stop. Rest is a luxury he longs for, but complaints are meaningless. This job is the only thing left to him. Still, Tanaka's work is far from ordinary, and soon we'll learn why. But before unveiling that truth, let us trace his footsteps back to the beginning. 10 years earlier, strange structures materialized across the globe. Structures humanity came to know as dungeons. From their depths poured creatures of unfathomable shapes and sizes, some towering like giants, others small yet no less terrifying. Whatever their form, these beings were never meant to coexist with mankind. With the sudden outbreak of dungeons, fear gripped the world, and from that fear, chaos was born. When the monsters began to spread across the land, humanity had no clear way to fight back. Some struggled desperately to resist, while others simply surrendered to despair. Yet hope flickered when explorers stepped into the dungeons themselves. Inside, they uncovered weapons forged with strange, otherworldly technology, relics that did not belong to this world. With that discovery, people turned into adventurers, venturing into the depths not only for arms, but also for treasures hidden within. But the dungeons were anything but safe. Everyone knew the price of entering unprepared. Death was the only greeting that awaited the reckless. At first, the idea of conquering such places seemed no more than a fantasy, an unreachable dream. But as the dungeons appeared, so too did individuals awaken to rare talents, gifts that granted them extraordinary powers. At first, the masses could not understand why these chosen ones were different. That doubt vanished the moment their strength was revealed. Compared to ordinary people, they were dozens of times stronger, wielding skills beyond imagination. In time, society came to rely on them, entrusting these gifted beings with the burden of restoring order and driving back the chaos by clearing as many dungeons as possible. By a twist of fate, fortunate or perhaps cruel, Tanaka himself awakened to one of those powers. It happened quietly, without fanfare, yet it set him apart from the ordinary. One morning, while riding the train to work, he overheard a young man speaking to his girlfriend, passionately praising the explorers he idolized. To everyday citizens, those gifted individuals were no different from superheroes, warriors blessed with divine strength to shield the world from chaos. Because normal people rarely witness true battles with their own eyes, companies created streaming platforms that broadcasted dungeon expeditions. Among them, the most famous was deatied, a site where anyone could watch the breathtaking struggles of explorers in real time. Judging by the man's excitement as he viewed a stream on the train, Tanaka could tell just how massive its popularity had grown. Nearly everyone in the city seemed hooked. Yet despite being one of the gifted, as they were called in Japan, Tanaka had never once participated in such broadcasts, nor did he have any intention to. His life had always been chained to endless work. Still, the idea fascinated him in ways he could not ignore, and as his weary thoughts drifted inside the rattling train, he didn't even notice when he finally arrived at his stop. When the train finally screeched into Shibuya Station, Tanaka staggered out with half-shut eyes, dragging himself toward the ticket gate and lazily tapping his card against the machine. Even as he shuffled forward, the thought of those dungeon streamers still clung to his mind. For the first time, he seriously wondered just how much money they earned through the app. The idea left a bitter taste. Here he was, growing older and more worn down by a dead-end desk job, while others lived glamorous lives on screen. Maybe, just maybe, becoming a streamer could be another path for him. His face carried the heavy look of exhaustion, yet he forced his body onward. After another stretch of commuting, Tanaka finally arrived at the Shibuya underground dungeon, Onigaiwa. Once he signed in, he made his way straight to the yawning dungeon entrance. Right on cue, a small drone hovered behind him. This device automatically recorded his every move, sending the footage back to the guild, and if set to public, it could even broadcast to streaming sites. But Tanaka had never cared for such attention. He always pressed the guild's black dog setting, using it only to file his quota report. Yet today, worn down by endless fatigue, his concentration slipped. Just as he stepped toward the dungeon's dark maw, his foot faltered, and Tanaka nearly stumbled at the threshold. With only 2 hours of rest and no return home for nearly 2 weeks, it was inevitable for Tanaka's body to reach this level of exhaustion. More than once, he found himself questioning why he continued enduring such a life. His guild was only a subcontractor under the government, which meant the hardest, most thankless jobs always fell into their laps. At this pace, Tanaka was certain he would collapse from overwork, yet he had no time to even dream of quitting. And so, once again, he approached the dungeon entrance with lifeless eyes. As he reached for the recording device to log his descent, his vision wavered, and his weary fingers slipped. Without realizing it, instead of pressing the guild's private record button, he activated the one linked to the public streaming site. Today's assignment was within the Shibuya Underground Dungeon, one of the largest labyrinths in all of Tokyo, and its depths would serve as his workplace for the rest of the day. At that moment, Tanaka had no idea that this mistake would mark the turning point of his life. While he trudged on as usual, unaware of the error, Countless viewers across the stream tuned in, watching his every move. To them, the sight of a lone man foolishly entering such a dungeon was laughable. Most believed they were witnessing a dead man walking. To give some perspective, every dungeon is split into 4 layers: the upper, middle, lower, and finally, the deepest floor. And today, Tanaka was headed straight for that lowest level. Ordinarily, explorers descend step by step, carefully clearing each section as they go. But Tanaka had no patience left for caution. With dark circles under his eyes so heavy they looked like bruises, he decided to plunge directly into the depths in one go. Yet just before leaping, a wave of melancholy swept over him. The image of his bed, soft, warm, and free of this endless nightmare of work, clung stubbornly to his mind. His fatigue boiled over, and for once he gave voice to his despair, muttering that all he wanted was a little rest, claiming he'd be the luckiest man alive if he could just sleep 2 hours tonight. Believing no one could hear his bitter rambling, Tanaka let the words spill freely. But the truth was cruelly different. The entire world was tuned in, watching his every move. Strangely enough, many viewers resonated with his exhausted complaints, and in response, his phone suddenly lit up, flooded with calls. This baffled Tanaka, since his contact list held only coworkers and a handful of old acquaintances. Having never touched social media, he simply brushed it off, unaware of the reason behind it. In the back of his mind, Tanaka knew that if he picked up those calls, they would only bring insults, so he chose to let the ringing fade into the background. Pushing it aside, he focused on his task and leapt, without hesitation, into the dungeon's lowest floor. At the heart of the Shibuya underground dungeon stood an ancient well, a passage that dropped straight to the bottom. Few explorers dared such a reckless descent. Most avoided it, knowing full well how dangerous it was. But Tanaka wasn't here out of courage or thrill. If not for his job and the crushing need to meet his quotas, he would never dream of throwing himself into such peril. Yet he had no freedom to choose. His face betrayed no fear, no emotion at all, as he plunged into the dark pit. On the other side of the screen, however, viewers tensed, many convinced they were about to witness his final moments. Just then, his phone rang again, louder and more persistent than before. Still, Tanaka brushed it off, muttering to himself that it couldn't possibly matter. Choosing to ignore it once more, he suddenly noticed the drone trailing faithfully behind him. Its constant presence made him uneasy. He still wasn't used to being recorded, but rules were rules. No matter how he felt about it, he had no choice but to let the machine follow. Even though the drone was meant only for company records, the very idea of being filmed left Tanaka uneasy. He couldn't help but imagine how humiliating it would be if his every move were actually broadcast live, though ironically, that was already happening without his knowledge. With the thought now stuck in his head, he found himself wondering what kind of comments he might receive if he ever did try streaming one day. When his tired eyes briefly met the hovering camera, the viewers watching on the other side erupted with excitement. To them, this was unlike any streamer they had ever seen before. While the comment section filled with cheers and shouts of support, Tanaka remained completely oblivious. A few moments later, his descent neared its end, but instead of solid ground welcoming him, he was met with a grim surprise. Waiting at the bottom was a monster. The audience, now thoroughly invested, reacted in shock and dread, for this was the first time such a massive beast had ever appeared live on stream. Tanaka, however, recognized it instantly with just a glance: a red wyvern. Though its sheer size made it look terrifying, he knew this creature was only a low-level threat. Judging from the way it moved, Tanaka realized the beast had mistaken him for prey. For the moment he landed, the wyvern spread its wings wide and lunged straight toward him, but Tanaka had no patience to waste on a creature as trivial as this. Without a hint of hesitation, he drew his sword, his face still carrying that same drowsy, uninterested look. With one smooth motion, he cleaved straight through the wyvern's body as though it were nothing more than paper, all while ensuring his landing was graceful and precise. The sheer aura he radiated left the entire comment section frozen in silence. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Then disbelief flooded the screen. Viewers exclaimed that a red wyvern, a beast feared by many, had been sliced clean in half. Such a feat, they knew, should be impossible for any ordinary human. Word of Tanaka's display quickly spread across social media like wildfire, igniting conversations everywhere. Meanwhile, his phone buzzed non-stop, the endless ringing pushing him to the edge of irritation. Just as he considered snapping at the constant calls, a new threat emerged. Several massive monsters appeared from the shadows, turning the situation even more intense for both Tanaka and the viewers glued to their screens. Yet Tanaka hardly dwelled on what lay ahead. He still had plenty of work to finish after all. Deep within the lowest floor of the dungeon, every spectator leaned closer, anticipation rising. Would this mysterious man reveal even greater strength? Or would this be the moment his journey ended? The people of Tokyo especially understood. This place was one of the most perilous zones in existence. Everyone knew that the lowest floor of the dungeon was a graveyard of the strongest monsters, a place where danger lurked at every turn. Armed with nothing but his sword and a resolve of steel, Tanaka braced himself, hoping he could survive whatever awaited him. After dispatching the red wyvern, he now faced an even deadlier lineup: trolls, minotaurs, basilisks, and death knights. These weren't creatures to be taken lightly. The threat they posed dwarfed dwarfed that of the wyvern. And, to make matters even worse, the tyrant dragon was here, looming over the battlefield like a living nightmare. Unlike any foe he had faced before, this dragon was a legend of sheer power, so formidable that Tanaka would rather avoid it entirely if he had the chance. But alone and bound by duty, he had no option but to confront it directly. Complaining wouldn't help either. This was part of his quota, and the work demanded he rise to the challenge. All he could do now was hope for a sliver of luck and pour everything he had into the fight. With exhaustion etched deeply into his features, Tanaka took a deep breath and stepped forward. No matter how weary he felt, he pushed himself to stay alert, determined to see this ordeal through to the end. For his first challenge, Tanaka now faced a group of trolls. In this world, trolls are feared for their massive, muscular bodies and terrifying faces, considered among the toughest creatures to defeat in the dungeon, even for A-rank explorers. Tanaka himself had struggled the first time he came across one during an expedition. Yet despite their fearsome reputation and near-invincible durability, he knew from experience that they could be dealt with efficiently. After facing dozens of these hulking monsters, he realized their weakness. A precise cut to the neck would immediately take them down. While their size, strength, and crude weaponry made them intimidating, trolls lacked any true special abilities. To Tanaka, they were relatively weak compared to the real threats lurking in the dungeon's depths. Most people, however, had no clue. Ordinary citizens or inexperienced dungeon goers would never guess how easily these monsters could fall. That's why the viewers watching the stream were left in shock, unable to believe that Tanaka could dispatch multiple trolls with just a single clean strike of his sword. To ordinary people, what Tanaka just did seemed completely unreal, bordering on inhuman. The comment section erupted instantly, flooding with disbelief. Many viewers pointed out that trolls were A-rank monsters, notoriously difficult to defeat, and couldn't fathom how someone as calm and emotionless as Tanaka could take one down with a single strike. Since this was the first time they'd witnessed such a feat, some began speculating wildly. Maybe the clip was edited, or some trick was used because no human, gifted or not, could possess that kind of superhuman strength. Yet slowly, a growing number of viewers began to realize that perhaps Tanaka was the real deal. The majority were stunned. Even skilled A-rank explorers usually rely on weapons and strategy to survive against such monsters. But seeing Tanaka obliterated effortlessly on the battlefield was awe-inspiring, impossible to look away from. As word spread, more and more people joined the stream, eager to see how he would handle the monsters that remained. Some even started asking the Black Dog Guild if Tanaka was truly one of their own, convinced that only someone with top-tier skills could perform like this. Because of all the chaos, the company couldn't stop calling Tanaka, seemingly desperate to warn him about the situation unfolding. While everyone watching the stream was thrilled by Tanaka's fearless display, he, on the other hand, was growing more and more irritated by the endless ringing. Unused to this many notifications at once, Tanaka ignored them all, determined to press forward with his mission. Outside people, including his company, were in absolute uproar over what Tanaka had just shown the world. But he remained utterly indifferent, his tired, bored expression betraying none of the chaos surrounding him. Focused entirely on completing his task, he didn't even glance at his phone once. And now, to raise the stakes even higher, Tanaka was about to face a new, formidable opponent, a basilisk. With its iguana-like appearance, this rare creature was hardly ever seen by ordinary explorers, yet Tanaka had managed to encounter one. While ogres were common in the lower levels, the basilisk was among the few terrifying predators that dwelled in the very depths of the dungeon. Even worse, it was infamous for its petrifying breath. One careless moment, and a single misstep could turn any adventurer to stone in an instant. Because of this, most of the viewers were now on edge, genuinely worried about Tanaka's safety. Some even began questioning whether they should chase their dreams of becoming explorers, or if it was too terrifying and they should give up entirely. The stream had now skyrocketed to 5 million viewers, an astonishing number that most other streamers could only dream of reaching. Meanwhile, Tanaka remained completely unaware of the fame he was gaining, his focus entirely locked on the basilisk before him. As a seasoned veteran, he already understood the full danger of this creature. He knew that a single breath from it could petrify a human instantly, ending their life in an instant. Normally, explorers with teammates could rely on healing items or backup, but Tanaka, a lifelong soloist, had no one to watch his back. That meant he had to finish the fight before the monster even had a chance to use its deadly breath. With that in mind, he moved with incredible speed, slicing upward from beneath to pierce the basilisk's abdomen in one flawless strike. And astonishingly, Tanaka pulled it off in a single, flawless strike. It was clear he possessed rare knowledge about the basilisk, insights that almost no one else had. From his experience, he knew the creature's weak point lay beneath its massive abdomen, but even a tiny mistake could trigger its petrifying breath. Since Tanaka habitually muttered his thoughts aloud, every word reached the ears of his streaming audience. When they heard him explain the basilisk's secret vulnerability, Viewers were left speechless. Many admitted they had no idea such a tactic even existed. What Tanaka called rare knowledge felt more like a secret no one had ever uncovered. Awe and disbelief rippled through the chat as fans watched the impossible unfold, a basilisk defeated with ease. Curiosity flared too. How many of these monsters must Tanaka have faced to master such a skill? Meanwhile, overseas streamers began rebroadcasting Tanaka's footage under titles like "A True Samurai Appears in Japan." His stream quickly soared past 10 million views, and Tanaka had become a worldwide sensation overnight. And yet, he remained entirely oblivious, growing increasingly irritated as his phone buzzed endlessly, completely unaware of the chaos he'd unleashed. Yet, Tanaka didn't respond. Deep down, he figured that any reply would just earn him scolding, or worse, insults from his superiors. So, as anyone could have predicted, he simply ignored it. Rest was a luxury he couldn't afford anyway, because his next opponent had already arrived. Towering before him was the Tyrant Dragon, a fearsome S-rank monster that even seasoned explorers try to avoid at all costs. Its strength and ferocity were incomparable, dozens of times greater than a mere troll, and its scorching breath could melt iron as if it were paper. This wasn't a secret. Many had heard of the dragon's deadly power. That's why seeing Tanaka step forward sparked panic among the viewers. They weren't just worried, they feared for his very life. Comments flooded in, begging him to retreat, insisting there was no way he could replicate his earlier victory. But this was a spectacle unlike anything anyone had witnessed, not just for the viewers, but even for other explorers. The stream's view count had now soared past 50 million, an unprecedented milestone that no explorer had ever reached. Amid the rising tension, Tanaka focused intently, gathering every ounce of strength he could muster, determined to strike down this colossal beast in a single decisive blow. With no way to turn back, Tanaka had no choice but to face the challenge head-on. After all, he was already deep in the dungeon's lowest level. Before throwing himself into this life-or-death battle, he focused on crafting a careful, precise plan. From everything he knew about the Tyrant Dragon, its fiery breath was far more devastating than anything he had faced before. One wrong move, one misstep, and he would be reduced to nothing but ash. Literally, not even a trace left behind. Every strike he made had to be perfect, executed with absolute precision. Meanwhile, the viewers watching his stream were on edge, their comments full of worry. Some begged him to flee while he still could, while others mourned him in advance, convinced he was already doomed to die against such a colossal foe. Yet, to their astonishment, Tanaka remained calm, almost eerily indifferent, though inside his heart raced with anticipation. Opportunities like this to battle a majestic S-rank monster didn't come often. Despite the danger and tension, he took deep breaths to steady himself, ensuring his attack would flow flawlessly. But before he could even make his move, the Tyrant Dragon unleashed its scorching, deadly breath. The Tyrant Dragon's searing flames were nothing short of lethal. Any ordinary explorer, lacking the knowledge or experience to handle such a creature, would have been reduced to ash in an instant. But this was Tanaka. Enduring the punishing heat, he planted his feet firmly, determined to end the battle in a single, decisive strike. With razor-sharp focus, he swung his katana, cutting the tyrant cleanly in two. The attack was so precise and lightning fast that the dragon never had a chance to react. In the blink of an eye, the monster that had terrified countless adventurers lay lifeless on the dungeon floor. And it was all the work of Tanaka, an explorer no one had truly noticed until now. The moment spread like wildfire across the globe. Viewers flooded the comment sections, their messages brimming with shock, awe, and disbelief. Defeating a tyrant dragon in a single strike was an achievement few could ever imagine, and Tanaka had done it seemingly effortlessly. Even more, the sudden appearance of this mysterious salaryman explorer left everyone wondering, who exactly was he? Meanwhile, Tanaka's expression showed nothing but exhaustion. He longed for a moment to catch his breath, yet the dungeon allowed no respite. Without warning, a fresh wave of monstrous foes emerged, rushing into the scene and leaving him no time to rest. It turned out that the tyrant dragon Tanaka had just slain was the undisputed boss of this dungeon level. With the top predator gone, the remaining monsters seemed to lose all will to fight. Even Tanaka, exhausted from the intense battle, felt a strong urge to finally take a break. Deep down, he reminded himself that this expedition was technically work. Any materials he collected by defeating these monsters would go straight to the company, leaving him with almost no personal gain, no matter how much effort he poured in. Having already met his quota, Tanaka saw no reason to push himself further. Energy spent on these lingering monsters would be wasted. Calmly, he lowered his guard and sheathed his katana, signaling to the monsters that the fight was over. Without hesitation, they scattered into the shadows, not daring to glance back. With his task completed sooner than expected, Tanaka felt a quiet sense of relief. After securing enough monster materials to fulfill his quota, he planned to head home immediately. But before leaving, he decided to check his phone, curious about what might be waiting there now that his work was done. At first, Tanaka only planned to skim through a few messages from his company, but the moment he opened his phone, he was hit by an endless storm of notifications. Clicking on one, the usually expressionless, deadpan salaryman finally showed a flicker of emotion. His eyes widened in disbelief. 9999 notifications. Even though he knew the company had been trying to reach him, him. Seeing a number this absurd was impossible to ignore. Curious and bewildered, he tapped one notification and froze. It was from DTube. His pulse quickened as he opened it, and his jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Millions of people around the world had been watching him live. Panic started to creep in. Tanaka couldn't understand why this was happening. He muttered to himself, certain he had restricted the stream to company only to realize with a sinking heart that he had missed the setting entirely. The thought that countless strangers had been witnessing his every move made him almost want to cry, but a tiny spark of hope remained. After all, he was just a nobody, and this was his first stream. Surely, he thought, the audience couldn't be that large. Could it? To his utter shock, Tanaka's stream had skyrocketed to over 100 million views, an achievement no other streamer had even come close to. The once stoic, expressionless salaryman now found himself reacting openly, eyes widening and mouth slightly agape. He had honestly expected maybe a couple thousand viewers at most, thinking that a company account would only draw a modest audience. But seeing the numbers spiral far beyond anything he imagined, even surpassing famous streamers, hit him like a thunderclap. For a brief moment, Tanaka felt his composure crack. Most streamers never even reach 1 million views, let alone 100 million. The sheer scale both thrilled and terrified him. Meanwhile, the comment section erupted in chaos as viewers realized that Tanaka had finally noticed he had been broadcasted the entire time. Some joked about having watched him from the very beginning, while others couldn't hide their admiration, praising how incredible and cool he truly was.